Hey folks, this is Andrew from Knapsack, and I want to walk you through the details of how you connect your design source and code source assets to your workspace. This is really what powers so much of the magic and the value that Knapsack can provide, whether you're just trying to make really powerful, accurate documentation, or you're trying to do things like prototype and automate some of the production workflow. We can do all of this much more efficiently and effectively once we start to connect to your source assets. And so what we're going to do here is document a component. We have here a message component. I've gone ahead and added a page with a bunch of content here using our system of content blocks. So I've added some text blocks. I added a guideline block here where you see I have all kinds of different controls for things like if I wanted to include images or not. I don't have them in this case, or multiple columns, full width, all kinds of flexibility on the content front. But now it's time for me to add design and code assets. And here I'm in the web browser playing the role of essentially a designer at this point. And so I'm going to go ahead and add a design source. And just to give you the context, I have a few things prepared here in our cooking show demo. I have one design component for the message. You see here in Figma, I have a variety of different properties for things like color, info, warning, success, danger, some text properties as well. And then this allows me to define all these different variants. And I'm actually going to use this source file here. And then I also have a component built in my repo. So this is where all of my different components that are already connected to Knapsack are built. My button, my card, all sorts of things you've probably seen in our demos. Here's a new component, our message component. And you'll see here, I've actually spun up a local Knapsack workspace, this dev server, and I have it running. So I'm going to pull that up here in a second. But the goal here is to connect this component that's built, React with TypeScript, and this component that's been built in Figma into the same common central source of truth. So let's start the workflow by connecting the design source element. I went ahead and connected that Figma file here to my workspace by adding the share link as someone with edit access to that Figma file here. That pulled up this demo design system library file that conveniently has our one component. And so now I can go in here and use that throughout the site. I'm going to associate that component that I can see here, that's the one we were looking at, with this pattern page, as we call it in Knapsack. And this will immediately pull in all of the variants and the properties all generated from Figma, and we access that through their REST API. And so we have a sort of a full breakdown of how this should work, as well as flexibility controls for how we actually present this in our documentation. So we're doing two things. We're associating it with the what we call the message component, and we're controlling how we want this to show up. And then as an editor here in the web, I have a variety of controls. I can just commit these changes. I can go ahead and publish, or if I have different permissions, I'd see another option here. But ultimately, I can hand this off to an engineer behind the scenes through Git or in the public eye if I want to make this part of the workflow public and assign my statuses accordingly. And then where the engineer would come in is, they would grab that branch from Git and pull it down, whether it's the main branch or on a specific PR or dev branch you're working on, and they'd be able to pull that down, and that's what they'd run locally here. And so when I showed this local server is running, what I'm really doing is I'm running a server based on a repo where Knapsack's been installed. And you see what that means for you engineers is all of the content, the guts of our CMS live in the source repos, right? That message page that had different statuses are defined here. The blocks, the tabs that we had, those are all stored here as data within your repo. That can be all in the same repo as your design system source, like we have in this demo environment. It can be in multiple different repos. We have a lot of flexibility there. But regardless, my goal here is to, now that I have a local running environment, let's open that up. And here we go. And you'll see it says up in the corner, local development. I now have a real-time environment running off the local files, not just what's been deployed. And if I had pulled down what my design counterpart had done, I would see something like this. Here's that page. Here's that Figma component. I can link over to the Figma component if I want to go look at the red lines. But ultimately, eventually, I'm going to build the thing. And so now I have a lot of options on how I connect Knapsack to, or connect your source code to Knapsack. Through the UI, I can go and add a template. I can add a path, whether it's a relative path or a file, an NPM path. It's suggesting some paths here because I've already connected a lot of components from this NPM package. And it's also recognizing what are the named exports in, I want to look closely at this index.ts. What are the named exports in this package that are not currently being used in this workspace. So it's helped me out with some intelligence there. It's given me the option to infer the spec or not, which means do I want to read, in this case, the TypeScript definitions to understand what the different properties are, or do I want to manually define them later, which I can do here. And so I can do that here. I can also, just to show you some of the other cool tools we have, do this through our patterns UI. And so I have this sort of bird's eye view that's showing me the Figma component, the content, and it's doing that same thing, giving me that suggestion here on both design assets from Figma as well as code assets. And so, you know what? I'm just gonna click this button, and there we go. I connected it. Now I'm gonna go back, and if I look at this, you know what? I might need to let's set. Yep. So in first spec, we refresh that page. We're gonna now have our properties all exist. We have, we can go even down here and add, let's add the template spec down there for this component. Just add the message, and we only have it in React. There we go. This is the prop spec. And we have different examples, and we can go start to build demos with this, or we can pass this off to our designers, better yet, to go build demos with this. And now we have, maybe I want to change that. We'll leave that. So I have the ability to now compare these things, start to look at, hey, how does this look in Figma versus, how does it look in React? It's been implemented the same way. Build this central source of truth, right? And as a developer, now that I'm in this local environment, I could start working away at this and seeing it reload in real time. And in other cases, you've probably seen, if we're working on things like our button, all these dynamic content blocks that loop over properties and render these real-time components, you now have access to that in a development environment as well. And when you're ready to publish your changes, you're pushing them right back into Git the way you always would, which will automatically trigger a deploy of an update to your workspace. So everyone working in and around the same space, being able to connect design, being able to connect code. Hope this gives you a good glimpse of how we bring it to life. Looking forward to hearing more of your questions and answering and helping out however we can.